Welcome back to the Oberlin Executive Speaker Series. My name is Doug Younger. I'm the founder and CEO of 3 Steps Forward. I am also an adjunct professor lecturing Business 118 here at Oberlin, which is digital marketing and innovation. This ongoing series is about how we're going to bring on founders, entrepreneurs, and community inspirations to the Oberlin community. Today, we're talking about something that's very special, at least to my 118ers, which is social media and all the great positive potential and the potential risks that go with it. But I have invited a very talented prospect from Sac State University, who coincidentally is not just a senior, he's also the co-founder and CEO of a startup that is a social media channel that changes how students, faculty members, and how universities can interact, which that platform is Buzly. And I am proud to introduce, I've seen you many times, Srinjay Verma. You are really a testament of what a young person can do and what is possible. Welcome to the Oberlin Executive Speaker Series.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Glad to be here.
So let's first start that you're a senior in college, correct?
Yeah, so I actually just graduated like literally a couple months ago. So I'm fully graduated now, which is awesome. But it feels great to be able to work on this full time now and really focus up on it. But yeah, the majority of my time when I was working on this, I was a junior and senior in college, for sure.
And then what did you study? Like what was your thing?
So
Software.
yeah, yeah, I studied computer engineering. So I was a computer engineer. I was never really super drawn to that. I just did engineering because I felt like it was a good way to kind of, it's a good background to have technically. I actually really liked marketing and things like that, and I kind of picked that up on my own, and that was like more of like a passion of mine and growth hacking. But yeah, I studied computer engineering all 4 years, and yeah, I graduated my bachelor's in computer engineering from Sacramento State.
Okay, and then to jump into your entrepreneurial life, like at what point you said you were a junior when you started Buzly? I thought it was even earlier.
Yeah, so the initial project was actually when I was a sophomore. So Buzly initially started the very inklings of like what we were building started actually as a class project in some ways. We had kind of come together and wanted to build something for the greater community at the college and then also like for ourselves and something that would basically benefit ourselves as students, but also those our community members around us. And so we started developing something we wanted to work on something while I was in sophomore year, which didn't like that project didn't end up becoming Buzly, but it was like the initial seeds that were kind of sown of what Buzly ended up becoming later on down the road. So yeah, I definitely started in sophomore year, and it was more so like it was a class project that we were tasked with coming up with something for the community, and so we wanted to basically build a marketplace for students to kind of buy and sell items on campus, which then ended up evolving later on down the road, like a year and a half later, into a community platform like Buzly, which students know and love now.
So, from my understanding, this project, was it part of the Carlson Center of Entrepreneurship Hive Mind program?
Yeah, so it actually started in a classroom project, and then actually really took off. We were really able to kind of take to the next level once I was introduced to Cameron Law at the Carlson Center of Innovation Entrepreneurship, and that is when I met one of my initial co-founders. And through that interaction with Cameron Law and my initial co-founder, that's when we were able to take it to like the next level, and that's kind of where the project got its legs. And I learned a lot about what the opportunity lied for entrepreneurship, specifically coming from the Carlson Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. They did a great job of kind of sharing what was possible. I always was very interested in entrepreneurship, but I never really knew what the next steps were. And the Carlson Center gave me a great platform to be able to kind of jumpstart and launchpad the idea into something that is a lot bigger than what it became, or what it was initially.
Very good. And this is my big shout out to Ted Evans and Deborah's department, Entrepreneurship. Srinjay's whole experience started with a project in entrepreneurship that later propelled him into becoming a founder and CEO, which is, it says something to the power of entrepreneurship. You kind of don't know what the limits are. Maybe I can give some of the students in the room, Srinjay, some context as to how I met you. You guys don't know, but I was the lead judge for the NBA, the National Basketball Association's crowdfunding campaign called Capitalize. I did that for 2021 and 2022. And that is a crowdsourced pitch competition. So the idea is any startup of a certain radius of the city of Sacramento could apply for a shot at $20,000. And what caught my eye, I believe it was in the final 8 competitors. One of the 8 was a student group from Sacramento State that was pitching an idea on how social media could be safer, more effective, and more efficient for students in college. And actually that presenter or that pitch was Srinjay Verma, which, I was very impressed. And Srinjay, maybe we could start with, what was that like? I mean, we were under the NBA arena, if you remember, at the Golden One Center. What was that like to give a pitch, yet still be a college student, yet compete in the National Basketball League competition?
Yeah, that's a great question. To answer candidly, it was nerve-wracking, right? I mean, I was not really totally expecting to be kind of thrown into that environment. And what was more actually nerve-wracking a little bit was actually the judges that were there, you yourself, but also I don't know if you remember your co-judges had you previously worked at Google Ventures and had built really great software companies and
I can tell you. So there was Craig Walker,
yeah,
who's
yeah,
valued at
Craig,
$1 billion. He's the original inventor of Google Voice. He was one of the judges. There was John Reinhardt, who is the president of the Sacramento Kings franchise. And then there was, I believe her name was Marissa, who is the vice president of the Sacramento Kings diversity and inclusion. And then there was me, right?
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And so that panel was very amazing, right? And so you wanted to do your best, and not only that, you were also competing against some amazing companies in in that cohort, which were doing some crazy amazing things. And so coming from like doing it as a student project to now like figuring out how to pitch, that transition was definitely something that took some time. But I think sometimes it's best to be thrown in the fire and like let it make your mistakes and learn from them. So it was really awesome to be able to do that. Definitely a little nerve wracking. And I remember one of the things I think I did a pretty good job pitching, but there was one slide or 2 slides on there that had a couple of typos. And I do remember that Craig Rocker pointed them out. And it was a really great learning experience for myself because later on, actually, when I did pitch, other investors later on down the road, I made sure every single time to make sure my pitch deck did not have any mistakes. And so it was a great learning experience for me. But it was definitely a very nerve-wracking and cool experience to do. I mean, to be under the NBA, area down there and be part of that competition and competing against some amazing companies, which are doing amazing today, is really cool experience for sure.
Okay, excellent. So let's jump into what you were pitching. So let's talk about Buzly. So
Yeah.
let's assume that the audience is uninitiated here in the room. You see they're still showing up here, and there's pizza, so you guys can come down and eat and water or whatever. So Srinjay, why don't you tell them what Buzly is?
Yeah. So Buzly is a peer-to-peer community for students to meet each other on campus. Once you're there, find different resources and get plugged into campus. That's before you come to campus and once you're at campus. So if you're thinking about it, students have described our app as either like Twitter or Reddit for colleges. That's literally what students say about it. It's like, oh, it's like a Twitter or Reddit for college campus. And then educators and higher education officials have kind of I've seen it as a peer-to-peer engagement platform to build community prior to coming to campus to help students convert, and then also once they're at campus, how do we keep them engaged? But for a student, like if you're just trying to meet friends, like this is a great way to do it. You can join the app, you can like get connected with everyone else in your major who's at your college. You can join a whole bunch of different group chats that are available. And then we have our feed, which is basically what students love about the app, is where students can kind of compete to gain recognition on campus. And so students have gotten a little bit of like fame, a little bit a well recognition on the campus because they're posting on Buzly. So that's kind of how students describe it. And so what we're doing is we're trying to help connect the higher education institutions with their students once they're in the campus, and then before they come to campus, how can we get them connected with one another so that they can convert over and enroll into classes? So that's kind of what Buzly is. It's a community platform to build belonging on campus.
And if I were to ask you, you compared yourself to Reddit or Twitter, but like, could you talk through like a use case of, either a project or how students could collaborate on Buzly?
Yeah, great example. Yeah. So one recently, I just spoke to a couple students who met their best friends through Buzly, and I was like, "Oh, how did you meet your best friends?" What they did is they downloaded the app, and they were automatically connected with a whole bunch of other students who were also in their major and in their classes. So immediately they had a whole bunch of connections that they could connect with. And then from there, they were able to create a group chat where they could create a study group. And from there, like I asked them, like, how did you meet? Oh, it's like, oh, I just DM'd them on Buzly, and like we became best friends. And since then, they've been meeting up in person and having that one-to-one group chat with their study buddies in on the Buzly platform. One of the good things about Buzly, I think Discord does a great job with creating different channels, but how do you find those channels? Like, how do you find discovery of that? And that's where Buzly comes into play, where you're automatically, once you put your major and your ethnicity and your hometown, you're automatically connected with people who are just like you. So you're able to just immediately kind of find your people and kind of build those relationships.
Fantastic. Now, here's the thing. Since you've started, this is no longer a school project. Like this is big business now. So how many subscribers or users are on your platform now?
Yeah, so we're really excited. We just crossed 51,000 users on the platform, which is really exciting.
Five one,
We
51,000.
Yeah, 51,000. We initially were growing super, super fast in 2021 and 2022. We had launched to over 50 campuses with different Instagram pages to kind of build those communities. And we were definitely, getting tons of users. We then kind of pared back a little bit in order to help with costs. And so the universities that were paying for the platform still had access to it, and we kind of put on pause the other campuses. But yeah, we're really excited about that. And students are still requesting, if you go to the app right now, you can request your school. And once we have about 5,000 students who request it, we look at potentially opening up the community at that school.
Mhm. Okay, this is excellent. Now, I have to ask this question. So you started as first a sophomore with a project that turned into a junior that with a company, which turned into a senior now in a graduate with 50 some thousand followers. Now, I got to ask you, what is the balance or imbalance being a college
Yeah.
student and an entrepreneur at the same time? Like, that's not regular, in my opinion, from my perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I'm sure Doug, as you know, there's not too much balance when it comes to like building a company. You kind of have to be 100% in 7 days a week. On the weekends, like you need to kind of be putting in everything you have, because if you don't, no one else will, right? And so it's really important to kind of to do that. But then also balancing that with finals and midterms, I remember was really difficult. Trying to We had the app go down multiple times while I was in a midterm, and at the time it was just me and one other person working on the app. So it was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like, should I just leave my midterm? Like all the students are really like, what the heck? Why did it go down, etc. So yeah, I think definitely there's not too much balance you can have when you're in college doing this. I will say that it's a unique experience though, because if you do build a company in college, you get to do and experience a lot of different things you may not have ever been able to experience on one hand. So for myself, I would, if I were to do it again, I don't regret it, and I would definitely build it again in college. I do know other friends of mine who built companies in college that have the exact opposite view, which is like, I wish I would have spent more time going out and like socializing a little bit more.
Go to frat party.
Um, yeah, right. But the cool thing is when you're running a social media company like what we were doing, we were sponsoring and we were throwing the frat parties with these fraternities. And so that was always fun to do because we had the opportunity to get everyone on the app and use the app that way. Um,
So you're telling
but
me that being a CEO helped you get a date on a Saturday night in college?
I just say like having the one of the apps that was popular at the campus definitely didn't hurt for sure. I'll say that.
Very humble answer. So I have to ask a question then. So, you know, you talked about Buzly creating relationships. I do recall previously you had a pilot for a almost like a dating app variant on Buzly, or I forgot what it was called. It was
Yeah, Campus Crush.
Campus Crush. So maybe talk a little bit about like I don't know whether it was successful or not, but this is a good example of you having a hunch or a theory and trying to do a pivot or something like that.
Yeah, so actually funny story about that. We actually brought that back because it was doing people students were we tested it early on and we're bringing it back and we're actually adding some monetization to it too now, and that's also great. We've tested that. But basically what we did is we said, well, what if we could set up our users so that you could leave a crush on somebody who's potentially in this class right now, right? You could leave a crush on their profile and then it wouldn't reveal it to them as unless they left a crush on your profile. And so it would say, hey, a computer engineer, a third year computer engineering student in your CS 101 class is crushing on you. Do you want to reveal it? And so that's one of the ways that we did that, and we saw students absolutely loved being able to do that. And even now, everyone has a campus crush,
There's a
right?
way
And
to
so
keep their anonymity. Like I think it was like somebody has a crush, but maybe you don't want to reveal like that you're the one, right? Like I thought it was real playful. Like I thought.
yeah. We like the idea is like if you don't want to reveal it, you don't have to. But like if you want to reveal it, you can reveal it and then you can see who that other person is. And so it's a great way. I remember students loved it because it basically allowed students to kind of secretly crush on their classmates without being overt about it, right? And like I don't know if I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have like been like used Instagram stories before, and like you can leave a like on someone's story. It was like similar to that, but it was called Campus Crush on
So
Buzly,
this
and
is
so it
why
was similar to
Campus
that.
Crush is special to me, Srinjay. So I'm a founder and CEO, and I had over 40 employees. And one of the things that's important to me is the diversity of not a thought, but even like experience in life. And some of that is age, right? So I'm definitely like aged out. Like there were no dating apps when I came along, right? Like it was very old school. And one of my employees, after listening to you talk about Campus Crush, the reason why they said that was so good is because they said the real world's too real time. Like you can't undo, right? So so I
Yeah.
was curious how this Campus Crush went, but I think that it's interesting that you're coming up with features that in the more undergraduate world that are relevant. Whereas if you go on Facebook, you probably don't want to have any crushes on Facebook because who knows where that goes, right?
Right, exactly. And we were really focused on how do we engage the undergraduate population because at the end of the day, that is the future, that's going to be the future home buyers, that's going to be your future workers. And so if you can engage that undergrad population, it's super valuable. Um, Also, it was easy for us because we were undergrads at the time, right? And it was just like, okay, what do we like, right? How do we build for ourselves? And so
You
That's what
were
was
you
really
were
great
your
about it was,
target audience, right? You were already the
yeah,
target.
we were just like, what are our friends gonna like? And then we would immediately go like show it to them and be like, hey, is this cool? Like, would you share this with your friend? And if they would, we would, put it into the app, or we would try at least.
So let me ask you this, Srinjay. You and I have had conversations before about one commonality of entrepreneurs. Although people view being an entrepreneur is like, I guess, provocative or interesting. But the truth is, entrepreneurs, we get used to being gut punched. We get gut punched a lot. So, could you talk a little bit about some of the adversities you face while trying to get this startup off the ground?
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up, right? When you're building a startup, it's a constant battle, right? Like recently, I don't know how many people are familiar with the company Nvidia or like those graphic chips, but one thing that CEO said that really resonated with me recently is like that you kind of have to go through ample doses of pain in order to receive like large amounts of success. And that seems like really, really crazy, but that is essentially what you're signing up for when you're doing entrepreneurship. You're signing up for the highs, which are extremely high, but you're also signing up for the lows. And it's basically a game of, how many punches can you take before you go down? And once you go down, are you going to get back up? Right. So essentially, like, that's the name of the game. And you gotta focus on, what you can control, but then also look at where the opportunity is. And so the way that I've kind of cultivated and focused with Buzly is I've done it, just getting like funding to get off the ground. Like, let me give you like this example, which is that I didn't know how to get users, right? I didn't know how to, I actually, my degree program didn't teach me, well, didn't really focus and teach me how to program what I need to build the app, right? And so all these things I learned on my own by teaching myself, through YouTube and things like that. And so the point that I'm making is that a lot of times, there's these barriers to entry, which is like, oh, I need to raise a ton of money to get off the ground, or I need to have capital. And a lot of times you can start small and get something off the ground. And then as you go, you can then supplement that with additional funding and things like that. And so for my perspective is it's more of a game of longevity and how do you build a sustainable business that's going to last, right? And so for Buzly, what we're trying to do is at least initially, the biggest adversity was getting users on the platform. How do you get people to use something that they've never heard of? And so that was the initial challenge, was how do you get people to use something? And so that was a very difficult challenge. And then you also have the challenges of scaling, which is like once the app is doing well and people are using it, the app's going to go down, right? And everyone's going to be like, students will be mad. Like when you build something people love, people will be mad when it goes down. And so it's how do you manage that with limited resources, and maybe you don't have all
Could
the
you
technical
so
skills you need. So what do you do, right? And so that is
what
kind of what
example
I
of
my experience.
could you give an example of, you're in class, you're living your college life, and then suddenly you did have a Buzly crash or something went down. Like, how does that play out? Like, how do you troubleshoot that? Like, what is it like?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I remember what had happened was we got this huge surge of users. We did a fraternity party. We had this huge surge of users, and those users started sharing our platform with other users, right? And so what happened was this network effect where one friend was telling their other friend about it, and our team was very limited at the time. I think it was two or three of us, and we were all like very busy with midterms at the time. And I was in class. I was in my midterm, and I remember my initial co-founder texted me and he's like, "Hey, have you been seeing this?" Like, I'm like, "What?" It's like, "We're on Twitter. People on Twitter are talking about us." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." I thought I was like, okay, one or two people on Twitter were like kind of tweeting about us. And then the third or fourth like tweet on Twitter was, "Hey, why isn't my Buzly loading? When Buzly stops loading, this is my like they're posting memes about us. Like when my Buzly stops loading." And I was like, "Oh no. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Why can't people access it?" And then at that moment, we got, I think, probably like 300 or 400 DMs on Instagram, which was our main channel of communication with users. And they were like, I can't log in. Why can't I log in? I lost or I can't see my posts. And so at this moment, I was in the middle of my exam and I was like, what am I gonna do? Do I just leave my test and try to go fix this problem? Where there's thousands of students who are, or do I try to finish this? And so I ended up quickly like, I don't know, I kind of just put down whatever answers I could and I kind of left and I went right into it and tried to solve the problem. And yeah, I just remember it was a crazy time because you had to, at that moment, I had to decide like, you know, where do I put my priorities? Like, where do my priorities lie? What should I work on? And it was a very cool experience at the time to do. And looking back now, it's also like I learned a lot like in that you can it's also you gotta figure out how to maybe fit stuff in your schedule and maybe take a lighter load. I think going back, I would probably have taken a lot lighter load of classes. I was taking a full load of classes and having working on this at the same time. But definitely a
Sure.
crazy experience, and we did get the app back up, so that was awesome.
So I'm going to break the fourth wall on this one, and I have my own personal story similar to Srinjay's here. One thing in entrepreneurism, expect things to go wrong. It's going to go wrong more often than right. In this case, I mentioned earlier for some of you who just joined that I was the lead judge of an NBA pitch competition. We were an official partner of the NBA, and we made a press release announcement. I went to my webmaster at the time, who is a UC Davis grad. Her name's Tika. And I asked her, I said, what are you going to do if we get 1 million people on our website? And her comment was, well, if you get 1 million people on the website, it's going to crash. I go, so I think you need to make a plan for that. So she said, okay. So, I think she was hosting on WP Engine at the time. And she said, okay, I'm ready. So we do this press release, and actually we had 12 million people went to the website. Of course, the website crashes. And we have our team meeting, and she says, Doug, you told me it would be 1 million. And then, I said, well, we got 12. And I actually told her, Tika, why are you so upset? Like, this is good problems. So that's one thing, Srinjay, I can say that sometimes as an entrepreneur, a problem can be an opportunity, and it's all in how you view it, right? Like I'm listening to your story. The fact that they're memeing you on Twitter, one could look at it as like, oh, our reputation shot. But another way to look at it is that means they care. That's demand, right? Like it means that it actually matters because they could just say nothing. And that is probably the kiss of death is when, they just say nothing. So thanks for sharing that, Srinjay. So now I want to talk a little bit about you know, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Like, is this part of your career and development plan early on, or is this something you just kind of stumbled into? Like, um, I mean, is your role model Elon Musk? What are you thinking? Like in terms, definitely not him, right?
Yeah.
But
No, Elon Musk is great, but definitely not my role model. He's kind of crazy. He's doing tons of stuff, which is amazing. Um, for the world. I don't know how great it is for his mental health, but it's great for the world. So I think that's awesome. But yeah, no, for me, I think I always so it's interesting. I didn't know for sure if I like wanted to start a company or anything like that. And so I did know early on that I did like building things and creating things. I had like a clothing brand in high school that I did, which was very something that was like entrepreneurship-ish.
mm,
Um, but I never knew what I wanted to do like apps or like software or anything like that until I got to college actually. And so for me, my career path was never like, oh, I'm gonna be this entrepreneur, right? It was more so like, there was a problem that I was solving, and it kind of, that's kind of where I ended up. Now, since doing that, I've gotten to a point where that is who I am, and I recognize that I am very much willing to stick it out through those fires, willing to go through these long periods of suffering or figuring out stuff when things not working. And I also really enjoy building things from the ground up and it from 0 to 1. And I want to scale things from 1 to 100 or 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. So those like now, having this experience doing that, I know that this is my path. Like I wanted to do this, and I am doing it, right? And so but early on when you're like, I was a student, I did not know that this is what I wanted to do. I was just like, oh, this is a cool opportunity. Like I mean, it started as a project, Douglas, right? So, and then I met the Carlson Center and they opened up my mind like tenfold as to what was possible, right? And so I credit Cameron Law to doing a lot of that, which was he really opened up my eyes to like what was possible and what um, could have been in a short word, a small school project could turn into something like a company and affect and impact so many people. And now I know for myself, like my motivator is how can I have the most impact in what I do? Um, and so the things that drive me are impact. So, building a company and how can you, best way to impact people is by building software. You can, affect hundreds of thousands of people that way. And yeah, so that's kind of my story is I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur, but definitely am glad I am now.
Fantastic. And one of the special parts of the Oberlin community here, this is a liberal arts school. So many of the students are creatives themselves, artists, sculptors, musicians, singers, entertainers, comedians. My class is very diverse in that regard. So as a founder and CEO, I mean, you're an employer too. Like you have to hire people. So one question I have is, are there any particular hard skills or soft skills that you felt have been beneficial in terms of recruiting into Buzly? And are there skills that some of the individuals in this class may say, okay, yeah, maybe I want to pick up a few things?
Writing was huge. Actually, writing is really important because um, even though a lot of our media nowadays is consumed via video, when you're like writing job descriptions, when you're trying to recruit people, writing is a great skill to have because you can write out your thoughts and kind of it helps like with I think critical thinking is really important when it comes to writing. So I would say writing is a really important skill.
Even
The
in the
other one is
even in the age of AI, like even with Chat GPT 3, you still are saying writing matters, right?
yeah. Yeah, I know it's because it helps with reasoning, right? And thinking, critical thinking. When you write stuff out, you get this ability to kind of think at things, look at things differently, and kind of like get your thoughts on paper and really think about them critically. And so yeah, I think even in high school, like the writing classes I took then, I'm just still serving me now. And so in college, the other skill that was really helpful was uh, I would even say like some like graphic design. Graphic design is really important. I mean, everything nowadays is branding, so you got to be able to understand how to do that. And I know if you're a creative, like that's really great because you can create different graphics that are may have never been seen before. And it's like, now how can you do that? The other thing I would say is like digital marketing. So how do you engage with people online and how can, what can you do to do that? So I think those are some like the hard skills. The soft skills would also be speaking. Public speaking is really important. You're talking to customers, you're talking to users, you're talking to investors, you're talking to, employees, like, and it's all about having hard conversations, right? How do you word things? How do you say things in a way that communicates what you're trying to say to them and they understand it and they want to help you on that journey? So I would say speaking is another really important soft skill. And then also collaboration. I know these are kind of like cliche, but honestly, these are really helpful. Is like, how do you work in a team? Like, how do you not have an ego, right? How do you say like, I don't care if it was my idea or not. This is important and it's going to push the business forward, right? Those are some things that like are really important to be able to know and how and to really do is, I would say, yeah, writing, speaking. Those are like the top two, especially when you're pitching, and then on a hard skill side, I would say digital marketing is so important in today's day and age. Like how do you engage people online? That's where everyone is. And then I would say, I don't even think programming is actually going to be that much of a thing in the next 5 years. I do think that what's going to be valuable is the large degrees because you're going to be looking if everyone can program and everyone can write code, then what becomes valuable? What becomes valuable is people who have these liberal arts degrees, writing, any of these other liberal arts degrees, because you're able to look at things differently than what somebody would just be writing code out on. So like, it's not about the actual execution of it. It's about the ideas and how do you, put your own spin on it. How can you be creatively thinking about the problem and doing it that way? So that I'm actually really excited this is a liberal arts college, because I do think there's a huge push right now that is going to be the future of work in general, is going to be people who have those degrees are going to be very valuable.
Yeah, because content creation is, at the end of the day, content is king. One thing I want to really focus on this one, Srinjay, is you talked a little bit about communication and to being able to speak or collaborate. But one of the things is the art of the pitch. And big shout out to my 118ers out there. I see a few there in my class. Tonight, we're going over, they had a project, Srinjay, where they had to create a 45-second pitch, and they filmed it on camera. And we're going to
Oh,
go
wow.
everybody's pitch. Even though some of my students are kind of apprehensive about that, it was about sharing their idea, but I'm of course going to force them to do this. But one of the things I'd love to hear from you is, I've seen you pitch, and you're one of the best out there, actually. If you don't mind, like, how do you go about practicing getting in front of people and conveying ideas or convincing people? Like, are you a mirror guy? Like, do you pitch to other people?
Yeah.
Do you not practice at all? Like, you just sing a cappella? Like, what's your method?
So for me, I guess the biggest thing is, well, I first off, the mirror thing doesn't work for me. I can't do it. I don't take myself seriously. I'm like looking at myself in the mirror, like you're looking at me. Like I don't want like that doesn't work for me. But I will say that for me, like if you have a friend, one friend, like, well, the first thing I would do is I don't even like go to anyone. I would just go by myself and try to like run the pitch a couple times with myself and make sure I remember what I'm going to say. And once I have that part of it, then I'll go and I'll, pitch to somebody and get feedback. And so, I'll go to like a library classroom or something like that, have one person sit down, give them my pitch, and then tell them to like, critique me. And then I'll kind of go down that pathway. And that's some way to do one way to do it. Um, After doing a lot of pitches, Douglas, and like, traveling to Minnesota to do pitches, Atlanta, like doing all these pitches everywhere. Now, as much, I don't practice the pitch as much because I have it memorized. And also it's my business. It's like that's what I do. So like it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I'll add slides or take out slides and I'll tweak my pitch a little bit. But for the most part, now I have it and I don't practice it. I only practice it like maybe once or twice a month just to kind of make sure I still can pitch essentially.
Mhm. Fantastic. Now, I would love to kind of play devil's advocate here and like
Yeah. Yeah.
talk a little bit about, like, in America right now, social media is pretty divisive for a variety of reasons, right?
Right.
There's misinformation, disinformation. There's almost kind of, due to the social media algorithms, there's like different polarized perspectives of what is happening in the world. There's, picking on, politics, there's left and right, and, we all war and we hate each other. Now, why do you feel, especially as a provider of a social channel, why has social media gotten so polarized? And also on Buzly, are you taking any steps to try to manage some of this? Because it can get serious. As we know with Jan 6, it can get serious. So, how do you manage, kind of expectations
Yeah.
of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two questions there. I'm gonna go to the Buzzy one first, and then I'm gonna touch back on the social media one in a second. For Buzzy, what we do is we build super safe college communities. And the way that we do that is we have intense moderators and AI that does that, but we actually have humans and our users be the moderators themselves. And we usually work with the campuses that we work with to develop rules for that campus. And so we never have any instances of like things spiraling out of control because of that reason. And I know a lot of other social platforms, things like Yik Yak, other competitors in our space, like those other apps have tons of anonymous issues. And also our platform is not anonymous, it's semi-anonymous, which allows people to, we do know who you are, but you are able to kind of share your thoughts without having any repercussions. So that's one of the big pluses of Buzly, is the fact that we are building safe um, power communities for college campuses. And like things like Yik Yak had anonymous bullying, harassment. I mean, there's been massive amounts of issues that have happened with these anonymous platforms on college campuses. With our platform, we've built a safe and inclusive environment that's actually fun, right? People still use it and really, really enjoy it. And so we've been able to strike that balance really well. So that's kind of like the point about Buzly. And then jumping over to the general social media point, I mean, I totally agree with you, Douglas, that we've gotten to a point now where deep fakes and AI is gonna take over the internet. There's right now there's no solutions to that, right? And so I know there's startups that are working on that, but how do you do that, right? How do you like, parse through all that information? I mean, you look at X or Twitter as an example, right? Elon Musk took over the platform, and he thought free speech is really great. I'm a big free speech guy, so I totally understand where he is coming from when he talks about, hey, we should let everyone on X say what they want to say. At the same time, you know, I'll scroll my Twitter feed and I'll see like horrible things, right? I'll see,
Yeah.
beheadings and like, yeah, just really, really bad stuff. And so you have to ask yourself, at what point is it free speech, and at what point is it a net negative to society, right? And we're reaching a point, in my opinion, now that uh, you could join a community of anything, anywhere, which is amazing. But if that community is not really something that is socially acceptable or morally right, you have to question and are we doing net negative or net positive to society? So I think platforms like Facebook, I mean, look at TikTok, for example. TikTok is right now in the news because they are potentially going to get banned, right? I personally don't think that makes any sense. I think that they should still stay as a company. I think it's an amazing channel as an entrepreneur to share information. So I'm a big proponent of it. But at the same time, I do recognize that uh, what you get served in your feed is 100% dictated by that platform. And there are algorithms that look at your usage behavior, and based off of your usage behavior and what your friends' usage behavior are, they're going to serve you content. So being aware of that
It
and then
can
also
reward
mitigating by it,
sensationalism, right? It can reward
right?
sensationalism, like you said, that is not necessarily good for society.
Right, right. I mean, I think as a society, we tend to pay attention to the bad a little bit more, maybe because it's hardwired into us, because, we want to be like, oh, I don't want to ever have that happen to me, right? So I need to like look at it and make sure, what can I learn from that? That's kind of how I think about it. I think that humans are a little bit hardwired to kind of look at situations and avoid bad situations, which is why they garner more attention a lot of times, is because, as humans, we want to, avoid the situations. But, you have all the positive and inspiring stuff, which is great, but that doesn't always get as much sensationalism because the bad is just kind of how, I mean, that's like the same thing with the news. The only difference is with social media now, we're just seeing that on a large scale. And we're also seeing like, conspiracy theories and things like that, like spiral out of control. And so it's like, how do
Mhm.
you, as a platform, you can't moderate it, right? And I think that um that's why like it's up to like society as a whole to kind of come together and put guidelines in place that fit for each community, because not everyone's going to agree on the guidelines, and I know for sure I don't agree on everyone's guidelines, but um I do think that it's important for everyone to like have free speech and things like that. So in this day and age, like the most important thing is views, right? Do you have audience? Are people saying your stuff? So people are willing to do whatever they want. You look at platforms like Twitch or Kick, um that's like a great example. Like I think social is actually moving towards live, right? So like you're gonna see in the next couple of years, I think live and gaming together is gonna be the new social. So it's like we're gonna see people competing on live, together in the future. Like we already see it on TikTok live, but that's just gonna be significantly increased. I mean, um, but yeah, that's my perspective on the social media landscape as a whole. I think that
Yeah.
um yeah, some really, really cool stuff going on, but also some scary stuff, because like how do you manage this? And
So,
I don't think the social media companies can actually do anything about it, really, at this point.
so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and my 118ers out there already kind of know my perspective. One of my philosophies out there is to create value every day of your life. And if you truly understand that you create value for your community, for your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, whoever, the rest of your life. That's going to keep you out of trouble with clickbait or sensationalism or, and I really do believe that, we talked a little bit about Elon Musk. One thing that, your moral compass in the business community, everybody thinks it's always about making money or always about clicks. But in my thought process of what I teach in my class is that, at the end of the day, if you're creating value, then it's of mutual beneficial benefit to all. And if you do that properly, then you're not going to steer into some of these, fringe areas. But I really appreciate you sharing this. And one thing I will say is, as a founder, I salute you for kind of steering into the storm there, because I'm pretty sure that even content moderation, I'm sure you've had some internal struggles or fights or arguments within Buzly related to these topics, right? Not everybody's going to agree with you on that, right?
Right. And what's actually really interesting is like when we first started taking down content, users were like, what? Like this is a thing? Like why is the platform taking down content? And so that was another thing we had to kind of struggle with early on, was like setting the expectation early on that this is, yeah, we are a platform, we could take down the content, and you'll be banned if you are violating what is allowed on the platform. That being said, that's why we've taken such a hard, fast, strict policy on the safety of the platform, especially because we're working with universities and colleges where we want to make sure that's a safe and inclusive environment. If you're building a platform that's more open for everyone, you may not have to do those same regulations. But I do think that the future is safe and inclusive, because when you're running something that's not safe and inclusive, it'll spiral out of control. And guess what? Actually, the users are going to steer away from the platform um, as
Mm.
well because of that fact.
So it wouldn't be I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do some type of interactive poll and kind of see what the audience is thinking. So we threw out a couple handles here. So I'm assuming the majority of you are IG users. Raise your hand if you're an IG user. Yeah, pretty much all of you. I should put my hand down. I have an IG handle, but it's not that successful, Srinjay. And this is where I'm kind of carbon dating myself. Now, how many TikTok users are out here? Now, are you a TikTok user or do you just binge watch TikTok? Yeah, they're saying yeah. See, I got it right. There's a lot. Yeah, you're one of them, Srinjay. So my comment, Srinjay, I do agree with you on how mediums are, this live thing or streaming of things, which in Twitch they already doing that in gaming, but now it's getting like I could live stream gardening in my backyard or something. But um, what do you think the criteria of success for you will be for Buzly? Like, when do you know you've succeeded? Like, there's one argument you can make on like total followers, but if you're making a difference in one campus, I could argue you're already successful. So, if you don't mind, could you share like when do you feel as a founder like you've made a difference and you're at peace with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that I'll just be honest, I'm still struggling with now, is like, what does success look like for me when I want, like, I think if your expectations are very high, like what happens is you tend to strive towards them, which is amazing. But it's also like what when is enough enough? And I think that's the other question you have to ask yourself, is like is doing that. I think the stage of life that I'm in right now, I'm very much the type of person where I want to achieve a lot in a short period of time. And I know it's kind of like very much like, I would maybe cliche, but that's kind of just like where I am. And so I think I'm always trying to figure out, I'm always asking myself the question of, um, what does my ROI look like, my return on investment look like for my entire life? Like, where am I spending my time? Um, and are these parts of my life pushing me forward as a person? Are they challenging me? And am I feeling like I'm growing? And so for me, the question is like, when do I consider myself successful? I don't know. I would say right now I feel like I've achieved some success. But again, it's always like I'm the type of person where I always want to achieve more. So like I definitely want to hit our goal of, achieving thousands of colleges using our platform. So that is something that I definitely want to achieve. Um,
But
and
you
so that's
realize
kind
that
of
could turn into millions later on, right? Like, that's kind
right.
of like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Right.
that's the addiction of an entrepreneur is that like you'll constantly find a new mountain to climb, right?
Well, that's the thing is like once you pass one milestone, I remember the initial milestone was like, hey, can we get people to use this thing? Okay, great. Can we get it to work? Okay, awesome. People are coming back. Now, okay, can we get someone to pay for this? Awesome. Now, can we get two people to pay for this? And so it's and that's part of that's part of what I like about entrepreneurship is it is a game. A lot of it is a game where like you do feel like there's always another level, right? There's always another level. And as soon as you reach a level, it's like, oh wow, you just met somebody who's playing the level 10 levels above you. And so you have to ask yourself the question, do I want that? And then also, what do they have to go through to get there? And do I want the pain that they went through to get there? And so sometimes the question is yes, sometimes the question is no. But for me
Great.
right now, I'm very much wanting to achieve.
So one thing that you'll learn about me that if and many of you here haven't worked with me is that as a judge in a pitch competition, I never forget. I never forget. So one of the questions I asked Srinjay, I can't remember if it was Capitalize or Spark Ventures or whatever it was. My question was, what happens to a Buzly user when they graduate? And I think that question's real relevant because you freaking graduated. So what happens? Like, does it their university EDU their EDU account goes away, and then suddenly it's like, oh, you're out of here. So what
Yeah.
have you done with that question?
Well, the first thing is,
And do you remember that I asked you that? Do you remember that I asked that
yes,
question?
I do. I definitely remember you asking that question, and I remember after you asking that, like the next couple of weeks, we were like thinking, like, that's a good question. What does happen? I think I answered it, but I was like, what should happen? And so I think that's we looked into it more after you asked that question. But it's an interesting story. What we initially did is we let the students be on the platform, the alumni, and then all of a sudden, everyone at the university who was going there was like, "Hey, why are you still here? Get out of here!" So like, we saw the users that were at the campus were like, "What the heck? Like, get out of my, you graduated, like leave." So the alumni users, now what we do with them is they label themselves as alumni, and they kind of graduate to this alumni platform, which is basically Buzzy for alumni. And we post like different job opportunities and internships so that students can who've just graduated can like get into the workforce because that's the next stage of life. I know when I initially graduated, I was like, great, I'm a new grad. Now what? I have all this, I gotta find a job. I mean, I was running my company at the time, but there was always these questions of like before I ran my company, I was like, what happens after I graduate? What am I gonna do? Like, what does that next stage of my life look like? And being able to have a community of people who are also going through the same thing is super helpful. And that's what Buzzy Alumni is like it's a way for you like to make the transition between college and then entering the workforce a little bit easier. So you don't feel like you're alone all the time. Like, oh man, like I just graduated and oh my gosh, like all the like the world weight of this world on me, like what I mean? Like my family is counting on me. They told me to go to college. Great, I got this degree, and now um I gotta find a job. And so that's the idea is like now you have other people who are also going through the same thing. So like you're not just alone, like trying to figure this out. And so it's about finding your people and staying connected with them after college.
Okay, fantastic, Srinjay. And we're running out of time here because I know the
Yeah.
students have to go to class. But if any of them, I am going to open it up for questions, but if any of them want to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you? Or if they're interested in Buzly, how can
Yeah.
they find information about it?
You can just shoot me a LinkedIn message on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I just put my email in the chat here, Douglas. You can also follow us
There
on
it is. There it is.
Instagram. So yeah, you can also follow us on Instagram. We have a couple different pages, one for per campus, but our main campus is Sac State, so you can just follow that page and you can get updates about maybe when it's coming to your campus. If you don't mind, Douglas, I'd love to ask the students a question real quick, just to
I
kind
love
of
it.
get, since this is
I
my
love it.
demographic, do a little bit of user testing real quick. So I guess by a show of hands, like what year, by show of hands, well, let me ask this question. Douglas, what year are these students? Do you know, or relatively, would you say?
Okay, how many are you seniors? Okay, we got two or three. Okay, great.
Okay.
How many are your juniors? Big group here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 5. How many are sophomores? Big, maybe biggest group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About the same as juniors. And any freshmen? Hey, that's what I'm talking about. And a 118er. And he's a 118er. So we have 2 freshmen here.
That's I love that. Okay, we got a whole mix. That's perfect. Okay, so there's 3 questions I have. One is, so what's like the #1 used app on your phone? Is it TikTok? Is it TikTok or Instagram? So if it's TikTok, raise your hand.
You gotta throw YouTube in there. You can't use.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we can just do all the platforms real quick, Douglas. I just want to see what's the most used.
How many
most used.
TikTokers that are on your phone? You use it on your phone. Any TikTok?
You're a consumer.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 2. How many IGers on your phone? Probably all of you. Yep.
Yeah.
And then how many YouTubers? Oh, there's fewer of us now. Okay, and then what other one you wanted?
Twitter and Snapchat.
Twitter or X? Oh, you still use Twitter or X? I thought you guys would log out there. And there are Snapchat users. Fascinating. Few, maybe like 4. So it's a mixed bag. Mixed bag. Not a lot of consistency there.
No, that's perfect. I was just curious as to kind of what everyone's using nowadays. I mean, I'm not that far out of college, but things change. And the other thing is I was going to ask was, how do you guys find out about events and parties? Like, is it just everyone just sends like a group chat around? Is it like a group me? Is it like a text, the Addy? Like, I'm always curious. Like, maybe you
Is
could
it a
ask that
secret?
question.
You don't want the teachers to know? Is that a secret? You want me to crash the party? So is there a uniform way of the way you guys communicate to get together? Word of mouth. Word of mouth. That's preferred.
Group chats. That is preferred.
Group chat? Like on what though? What platform? Snapchat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool.
Don't forget, Srinjay, there could be some secret sauce here. They may not be telling all.
Yeah. No, I'm that's why like these guys are pretty much the future, right? So I love to hear from this is my college students are who my target audience is, and so that's perfect that you guys are checking out.
I think it's funny that we didn't even ask who uses Facebook. That's just out, right? Nobody in the room uses Facebook except me. Oh, there's a few. Okay. You're Facebook Marketplace, kind of embarrassed to admit to using Facebook. So honestly, Srinjay, that's the challenge you have, that social channels are trendy, right? Like you could be up 1 minute and then you could age out. Like people are like, I mean, look, I was up a generation. MySpace used to be something. Now it's a joke. Some of you may not even know what MySpace is.
Yeah, Tumblr. I don't know. There's a bunch of other platforms that are completely gone. You guys use Discord? Probably a lot of Discord users, I would assume.
Oh, there's a lot of few Discorders,
okay.
yeah. But you are software developers, right? No, or musicians, right? Why are you using Discord? For what? For groups, yeah. Is that why you use Discord in the back? Yeah, groups. So that's another way to find people.
Yeah, very cool.
I don't know, Srinjay, stick to Buzly alumni. You're not cool anymore, man. Like you can't be running around.
I know. That's why I'm asking these guys. They probably know a lot more than I do. It's awesome.
Okay,
cool.
We're past time.
Thanks so much.
We're past time, Srinjay. So everybody here, again, I appreciate your questions, interests. Hey, good attendance. Always love that. See you guys. Next Tuesday, we're bringing in a master's of Stanford engineering, and her name's Anna, who's working on a medical device. So if a lot of you are thinking about industrial design, human bioengineering, or the interface between human and robotic physiology, Anna will be here. If there's any questions for Srinjay, Srinjay, you may have a few more minutes to hang around. Oh, sorry. I gotta pick in advance. There's no rest for the entrepreneur, right? So there'll be a spring break. That is true. It'll be April 2nd that Anna from Scopy will be here. And I would definitely encourage you to be safe out there on spring break. Don't get too crazy, and come back safe and sound, and we'll get back to what we do, right? So thank you, OB community. Have a good day.
Thank you guys.
Any questions? No. Yeah. Well, Srinjay, thanks, man. You take care. We'll be talking soon, okay?
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Douglas. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yeah.